All right. Well, welcome everybody. This is Mr. Zwacky, and today what we're going to be talking about are three things: the cell cycle, mitosis, and meiosis, which has a lot to do with lesson 301 if you're in a biology course. The first thing we need to know and know about and memorize is this cell cycle, and it's pretty simple. The cell cycle is broken up into three stages. There's always interphase, which is first. As you can see, interphase is like most of the entire cell cycle. So most of the time, the cell will be an interphase. The second phase is mitosis, which is right here, this tan-colored sliver of a pie. And the third step is cytokinesis. So there you go. That's the cell cycle right there, guys. Interphase, mitosis, and cytokinesis. Interphase is the biggest part of the cell cycle. That's where the cell spends a lot of time either growing, that's G1, making copies of everything, which is S, or growing even more, which is G2. And then very quickly, it'll go through mitosis, where the chromosomes and the nucleus and the parts inside the cell begin to pull apart. And then cytokinesis, where the cells break apart into identical cells. So everybody has to know that. This is just a very simple representation of what all of our cells go through in their life. And their life is a cycle, just like water has a cycle or the carbon has a cycle. Our cells go through a cycle too. And they're either going through interphase, where they're kind of in like a dormant stage where they're growing, doubling up, making copies of everything, growing more, or they can be going through mitosis, where the chromosomes and nucleus pull apart, or cytokinesis, where the cells break apart. Once those cells break apart during cytokinesis, both cells go back right into interphase. And the whole process continues to repeat itself. So that's a picture of it. But this is what the explanation is about it. Remember how I said the three stages of the cell cycle? We got interphase, mitosis, and cytokinesis. Interphase is G1, S, and G2. Those are the three parts of interphase. G1, I've already said this, but G1 is where cell grows. S is where the cell makes a copy of every single thing inside of it. So it makes a double DNA. It makes double amount of mitochondria. And if it's a plant cell, it makes double the amount of chloroplasts. And it makes double the amount of Golgi apparatus. So that's the S phase. And then G2, it'll grow even more. So by the time interphase begins, kind of looks like just a regular cell. But by the time interphase ends, it's huge. And there's double the amount of everything. So there's like 2 nucleus put together. There's double the amount of DNA. There's double the amount of different organelles as well. And it's double the size. So that's what interphase is all about. Really just growing and doubling up. Mitosis or meiosis, this is the second step cells go into. They have a choice. It'll be one or the other, mitosis or meiosis. That's where the nucleus, you know, that brain, that main control center of the cell, well, it splits. Remember, it's double the size. So the mitosis is when the nucleus splits and forms 2 different nuclei. Cytokinesis, cyto means cell. So this is where the cells break apart. And that's when the cell splits into 2 cells. After cytokinesis, well, the cell goes back into interphase, and the whole process repeats itself. So this isn't complicated, guys. It was more complicated actually learning about photosynthesis or cellular respiration. But the cell cycle, that's it. The 3 stages, interphase, mitosis, cytokinesis. What happens during interphase? Well, that's G1, S, and G2. That's where the cell grows, doubles up and makes copies of everything, and then grows more. And then once it's fully double size with double of everything, then it'll have a choice, mitosis or meiosis, where the chromosomes and nucleus kind of pull apart, and then cytokinesis, where the cell breaks into two identical cells. After that cytokinesis, the whole process repeats itself. So it goes right back into interphase again, and everything goes through the process again. So does everybody understand the cell cycle with interphase, mitosis, and cytokinesis? Does everybody have an understanding of those three parts of the cell cycle and what happens in each one? This is just a checkpoint, just to make sure we understand those. So good job, Ashley and Danielle and Mina. Joshua. Okay, chat mark works too. Good. All right, so that's the cell cycle, guys. That's a lot of 301. Now, when we talk about this right here for the rest of the day, the goal is to know the difference between them. That's it. We already know interphase, where the cell just grows, makes copies of everything, and grows more. We know cytokinesis. That's where the cells break apart to form new cells. But this right here, mitosis and meiosis, now for the rest of this live lesson, we got to figure out the difference between it. And it's pretty simple. Mitosis versus meiosis. Well, one big, huge difference, mitosis is like 99% of all of our cells. These are somatic body cells. So examples of somatic body cells, your skin cells are somatic body cells. Your brain cells are somatic body cells. Your red blood cells that carry oxygen around your body, they're somatic body cells. Pretty much almost every single cell you can think of is a somatic body cell. And those go through mitosis. Most of our cells, 99% of them, go through mitosis. Only 1% of cells in our body go through meiosis. And the only cells that do that are called gametes, or sex cells. So for animals, that would either be sperm cells or egg cells. That's it. Egg cells would be for female animals, and sperm cells would be for male animals. That's it. That's one big, huge difference there. So when that cell is done with interphase, it's going to ask itself, is it a regular body cell? Well, then it's going to do mitosis. That's most of the time. Or is it a reproductive cell, like a sperm cell or an egg cell? If it is, it's going to do meiosis instead. So there's one big difference. Here are your other differences. We already said this one. Mitosis is done by regular body cells called somatic to make more regular body cells. So skin cells, brain cells, etc. Meiosis is done by reproductive cells called gametes only to make more reproductive cells, which are sperm or egg cells. So we know that difference, right? Mitosis goes through the stages prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase one time only. Meiosis goes through prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase twice. Mitosis goes from 1 to 2 identical copies of cells. Meiosis goes from 1 to 4 different copies of cells. And if you count the chromosomes at the end, mitosis, it gives you the full amount, which is diploid. Haploid gives you half the amount of chromosomes. So there are your big differences there. You've got to know those 4 differences between those 2 processes too. Just remember, mitosis is regular body cells. Meiosis is only reproductive cells. Mitosis goes through the process once. Meiosis goes through it twice. Mitosis makes 2 identical copies. Meiosis makes 4 copies, but they're all looking different. Mitosis has the full set of chromosomes. Meiosis only has half the amount of chromosomes. Does anybody know why, before I get into it, why do you think meiosis makes cells with only half the number of chromosomes? Why would that make sense? Does anybody know? Anybody want to try to give a guess? Yep, you got it, Marcus. Think of the male. Okay, this is a symbol for male. If they got 23 chromosomes in one of their reproductive cells, and a female has 23 chromosomes in its reproductive cell, which is only half. So 23 plus 23 will equal 46 chromosomes, and that is the first thing that you or I ever was a zygote. 46 chromosomes, which is 23 from our father and 23 from our mother. And then you get 46 chromosomes, or 23 pairs total. So why does meiosis only have half the number of chromosomes? Because reproductive cells only should have half the number of chromosomes, because they're inherited from each parent. It's a good explanation. All right, so as I was saying about mitosis, remember it goes through 4 steps. Mitosis is 4 steps. And those 4 steps are prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Yes, you'll need to know how these look different from each other as well, but they're pretty simple. And I think you've seen them before too. Prophase, think of pro for pair up. So these are the chromosomes, and they begin to pair up. They thicken and shorten, and they become visible. So before, they're like this, and now they're like that. So it's the same amount of chromosome, but it becomes thicker and shorter. And 2 chromatids are joined by a centromere. So remember how the chromosomes pair up? Well, here's one. Here's another one. So they're going to pair up and form, almost looks like an X, like a furry-looking X with a centromere in the middle. So that's what a chromosome looks like when it's ready to go through mitosis. The centrioles move to opposite ends of the nucleus. The nucleolus, which is the center of the nucleus, disappears, and the nuclear membrane disintegrates as well. So the nucleus kind of goes away during this process because it goes away so it can be split up. So here we go with prophase. Look, this is what I want you to more or less focus on here. This is an actual picture of a cell in prophase, but if we can make sense of the picture down below, that's going to help you out more. So this dotted black line is the nucleus. It's disappearing. And now we have 4 chromosomes that are beginning to appear and form their X shape. So remember, during prophase, nucleus disappears, the centrioles begin to go the opposite ends of the cell, and the chromosomes begin to pair up. That's what prophase is all about. Pairing up of the chromosomes, nucleus disappears, centrioles are now on opposite ends of the cells, everything's ready to get started. Metaphase, think of M for meet in the middle. Chromosomes now arrange themselves in the middle or equator of the cell. So we have our cell here. Now those 4 chromosomes are going to look just like a nice orderly line right in the middle of the cell. They become attached to the spindle fibers right at their centromere, which is the center of the chromosome. So now they're attached by spindle fibers. And the homologous chromosomes, that just means that the chromosomes that are together as X's, they do not associate with one another. They will be pulling apart soon. So that's what metaphase. Think of meta from middle. Very easy. Look, here's your 4 chromosomes lined up right in the middle. Here's your spindle fibers that are attached to each one. And that's all metaphase is, just where every chromosome aligns in the middle. Meta, middle. Here's a picture of a cell. Here's your chromosomes right in the middle. Think of Anna and apart. Anaphase, the chromosomes get pulled apart. So now, remember from before, you have the X's in the middle, right here. Well, in anaphase, they pull apart. So look, X, and then those spindle fibers rip those X's apart. And now they're going away from each other. The spindle fibers contract, pulling the chromatids to the opposite poles of the cell. So these are no longer chromosomes, because they were together when they were a chromosome. Now they're called a chromatid. So those are like, think of it like the two pieces of the chromosome. They get pulled apart by the spindle fibers. Now they're called chromatids, and they begin being pulled apart to the opposite ends of the cell. So think of Anna and apart. It's a great way to memorize that. And then telophase. Think of telo or two. Now this is the end. So this is where the chromosomes begin to uncoil. So they used to look like that. And now they're going to go back to like looking like all over the place. The spindle fibers go away. The centrioles replicate. So they're ready for next time. And the nuclear membrane comes back. So the cell membrane, or sorry, the nucleus membrane becomes more visible, and then the cell divides. So here's what telophase looks like. Look, I'm beginning to see two cells now. 1, 2, 1, 2. It's still one big cell, but now I have 4 chromatids over here, and my nucleus is starting to come back. I got 4 chromatids over here, 1, 2, 3, 4 as well. And those are the nucleus is starting to come back. So now I'm really starting to look at 2 different cells here. Look, nucleus is coming back here, the nucleus is coming back here. And the cell is still one cell, but we can see what's happening. It's beginning to split right in the middle. And that's the last stage of cytokinesis, where the cells break apart, and then you got 2 new cells. And then you got cytokinesis. So this picture right here, guys, shows a summary of what we just talked about. This is something you guys need to make sense of, at least know the different stages. Prophase, this is interphase up here. Interphase is where everything's still kind of dormant, everything's starting to become more visible, and the chromosomes are becoming more visible. But then when prophase hits, remember, pair up. So prophase pair up, this is where the chromosomes pair up, form their X's. So now they're a homologous chromosome. The nucleus begins to disappear. See? In metaphase and anaphase, there's no more nucleus, so it disappears. Metaphase, meta means middle, that's where the chromosomes line up in the middle. Ana, apart, so remember, prophase is pair up. Meta means middle. Anaphase means apart. See, the chromatids now begin to pull apart. And in telophase, now there are 2. You begin to see 2 cells. The chromosomes become, or the chromatids now start to unravel and become more stretched out. You begin to see the nucleus, now 2 of them in 2 different areas. And then cytokinesis is where the cells split. So those are your 4 stages of the mitosis. Now, when you look at meiosis, it's not that much different. If you look at prophase 2, metaphase 2, anaphase 2, and telophase 2, it is exactly what we just learned, but you're starting with 2 cells versus 1. That's the only difference. So let me say that again. With meiosis versus mitosis. Remember, meiosis is regular reproductive cells. Mitosis is all the other cells inside the body. Well, meiosis 2, there's 2 parts of meiosis. There's meiosis 1, and there's meiosis 2, which has the number 2 at the end. Everything with 2 is the same thing as mitosis, except it's just double the amount of cells you're working with. And then with meiosis 1, that's where the only big difference is, look, prophase, they still pair up. Metaphase, though, look, their pairs are in double X's. So instead of having just the regular X's lined up in the middle, like in metaphase right here, look at metaphase 1 for meiosis. They actually pair up with a second chromosome. So now you have 2 different chromosomes paired up. And their legs even lock and intertwine, called crossing over. That's how you get genetic variation. That's why you look different than your mom and your dad, because of prophase 1 and metaphase 1. And then anaphase 1, now they split the number of cells, or split the number of chromosomes in half. This is where they split them in half. And then in telophase 1, they break apart to form 2 cells with half the number of chromosomes in each. And then prophase 2, metaphase 2, anaphase 2, telophase 2, remember, it's exactly like mitosis, except you're dealing with double the amount of cells. So before I finish up, I do want to go back to the description of telophase, just to make sure we have an understanding of that. Remember, telophase means 2. The chromosomes, they go from a condensed state to uncoiling. The spindle fibers disintegrate. The centrioles replicate, which means they make more of them. The nuclear membrane begins to come back so you can see it again. And then the cell divides at the end. That's really, though, cytokinesis. All right, so now I got some follow-up questions from you guys, and if we answer these right, we're all done, because we understand all those different parts of what we learned today. So first of all, can anybody tell me, what are the 3 stages of the cell cycle called? What are the 3 stages of the cell cycle? And I guarantee you guys, this will be your first question on your DBA as well. It was good job to memorize this. Perfect, Joshua. Interphase, mitosis, cytokinesis. Marcus, you got it. Yep, Ashley, you got it. Danielle, you got it. Justice, you got it. Good job. Remember, yep, and then Nina, you got it too with the 3 things. Interphase, mitosis, cytokinesis. Now, out of those 3, though, which one is where the cell spends most of its life? Where would the cell spend most of its life out of those 3? Good job, Danielle, in the first. Ashley, Mila, Mina, Aiden, Joshua. Yep, we know that. The cell spends most of its life, like over 80% of its life, in interphase. That's where the cell grows, makes copies of everything, grows more. So it's just really growing and doubling up. And then we know quickly it goes through mitosis and cytokinesis. So next is mitosis versus meiosis. There are 4 big differences between mitosis and meiosis. Can you tell me one? What's one big difference between mitosis and meiosis? And remember, don't forget to participate if you want to get the credit for today. This is how I check. Mitosis is only forms 2 cells. Meiosis produces 4. That's one big difference. Can anybody think of another difference? Good job, Joshua. That's another difference. Mitosis produces identical cells, and there's 2 of them. Meiosis provides diverse cells, and there's 4 of them. Good job, Justice. That's another difference. Mitosis goes through prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase 1 time. Meiosis goes through it twice. Remember? Here's mitosis. 1 time. Prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. Meiosis, it goes through it twice. Can anybody tell me, oh yeah, Joshua, good job. Mitosis has the full amount of chromosomes. So at the end of mitosis, they're going to end with 46 chromosomes if they're human. Meiosis, they're going to end with only 23 chromosomes. And they split up right here. This is why. Prophase 1 and metaphase 1. That's why you get half. So good job there, Joshua, for explaining that. So this is what I want everybody to memorize. I think we got it all. Mitosis is done by regular cells. Meiosis is done by only reproductive cells. Mitosis goes through prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase once. Meiosis goes through it twice. Mitosis has 2 identical copies. Meiosis has 4 different copies. Mitosis is diploid, which is the full set of chromosomes. So in humans, that would be 46 per cell. Meiosis does half the number of chromosomes at the end. So that would be only 23 human chromosomes per cell. So those are your big differences, guys. And if you can explain these differences and you know the steps of mitosis, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. Remember, prophase is where they pair up. Metaphase is middle. Anaphase is where they pull apart. And telophase is where they turn into 2 of them. As long as you know the differences between those 4 things and you know the cell cycle, which is interphase, mitosis, cytokinesis, and you're able to tell me the differences between mitosis and meiosis, that's it for today. So does anybody have any questions about the cell cycle? Does anybody have any questions about mitosis versus meiosis? Or does anybody have any questions about anything else that we learned today? Well, if you don't have any other questions, guys, I really hope you learned this. When you do your 301 lab, you're going to be counting cells. You're going to be looking to see how many cells are in prophase and metaphase and anaphase and telophase and interphase. So you'll be counting those cells and turning that into a lab report with data tables and graphs and answers. So we can already assume that you're going to count most of them in interphase, but that's kind of what the lab's about. So thank you guys again for coming. I hope you learned about the cell cycle along with, the difference between mitosis and meiosis. Thank you guys again for coming, and next week we'll be learning about more, getting into some genetics.